Hey, it's Shiloh Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Shiloh Social Studies. Today we're going to be talking about 9 pretty important battles of the Civil War. Now, there were over 10,000 military engagements during the 4 years of the Civil War. Of those, there were over 100 significant battles and over 50 major battles that cost the lives of over 620,000 Americans. We are going to discuss 9 battles that have a significance to the war and one that is significant to eastern North Carolina, right outside of Four Oaks. The first battle we're going to cover is the Battle of Fort Sumter, April 12, 1861 to April 13, 1861, in South Carolina. The Battle of Fort Sumter was the first battle of the Civil War. Fort Sumter was a federal fort of strategic importance. Located in the middle of Charleston Harbor, Fort Sumter controlled all shipping lanes in and out of South Carolina. This engagement proved to the Union and Abraham Lincoln that the Confederacy was willing to fight for federal property, and Lincoln's calling for troops proved to the Confederacy that he was willing to fight for federal property. There were approximately 29 Union soldiers who were manning the fort when P.G.T. Beauregard began the bombardment. There were 0 casualties on either side when Fort Sumter surrendered to the Confederacy. The second battle we're going to cover is the First Battle of Bull Run, or First Manassas in Virginia, July 21st, 1861. The First Battle of Bull Run, also known as the First Battle of Manassas, was the first significant or major battle of the Civil War. Bull Run was a morally devastating battle for the Union. Up until this battle, Northerners felt that the Civil War would only take a few short months to be over. The Confederacy put up such a fight, and they were victorious, that the Union Army's idea of a quick victory was now hopeless. 35,000 Union soldiers clashed with 20,000 Confederate men. Casualties were high during the one-day battle, totaling 4,700, of which 2,950 were Union and 1,750 were Confederate. The third battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Shiloh, Pittsburgh Landing, April 6, 1862 to April 7, 1862 in Tennessee. The Battle of Shiloh put the best against the best when it came to Army leadership. For the Confederacy, Sidney Albert Johnston, a veteran of the Mexican-American War, and according to Jefferson Davis, the best general the South had to offer, against Union General Ulysses S. Grant. At the time of the war, Shiloh was both the bloodiest single-day and bloodiest two-day battle in American history. It served as an introduction to total warfare, the type of fighting Grant would rely on for the rest of the war. The Union Army sent 62,000 soldiers up against 45,000 Confederates, resulting in a two-day casualty count of 23,741. 13,000 were the Union and 10,600 and change for the Confederacy. It was during this battle that the highest-ranking general on either side died in combat, when Sidney Albert Johnston was shot and killed. The next battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Antietam, September 17, 1862 in Maryland. Robert E. Lee and his 55,000 men of the Army of Northern Virginia were advancing into Maryland in the fall of 1862 when they were met by a larger Union Army of the Potomac, some 87,000, commanded by General George B. McClellan. The Battle of Antietam would become the deadliest one-day battle of the war. With casualties numbering on the same on each side, about 10,500 each, there was really no clear victor. The much larger Union Army claimed victory based on strategic land holdings and effectively halted Lee's advance into Maryland. While the battle was gruesome, it did have some great importance. Abraham Lincoln was looking for a victory to give a speech to the nation, and this was it. After the Battle of Antietam, Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation changes the reason of the war from saving the Union to now ending slavery. The fifth battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Gettysburg from July 1st to July 3rd, 1863 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The Battle of Gettysburg was a 3-day battle that consisted of 3 distinct days of fighting. Gettysburg 3-day battle has the distinction of being the deadliest battle of the Civil War, accumulating the most casualties and the turning point of the war. Robert E. Lee felt that a decisive victory in the North would force Abraham Lincoln to surrender. In the summer of 1863, with the war dragging on, Robert E. Lee and about 75,000 members of the Confederate Army attempted to engage the North and take over Gettysburg, hoping for a clear path to Washington, D.C. Lee was met by Union General George Meade and the Army of the Potomac, numbering around 105,000. Fought on the hillsides of southern Pennsylvania, Union General George Meade and the Army of the Potomac outlasted Robert E. Lee and the Confederate attacks. 3 days of fighting on 3 different landscapes packed dead and wounded soldiers on the small battlefields. The final day of fighting culminated in Pickett's charge, a last-ditch strategic error on the behalf of General Lee. Lee sent General George Pickett and his 13,000-man division to attack the center line of the Union Army. Pickett's division was slaughtered, and Lee was forced to retreat. Total casualties from the battle are estimated to be around 51,000, numbering about 23,000 Union and 28,000 Confederate soldiers. The sixth battle that we're talking about is the Siege of Vicksburg, when it was surrendered on July 4th, 1863 in Mississippi. Lincoln realized during the beginning of the war that control of the Mississippi River would be important for victory in the Western theater. If the Union Army was to control the Mississippi, they could effectively squeeze the Confederacy into submission. The goal came to fruition when General Ulysses S. Grant surrounded the city of Vicksburg and laid siege to the city for 2 months and gained control of the Mississippi River on July 4th, 1863. After Vicksburg, Lincoln proclaimed, "I have found the man who can win this war." Total casualties from the siege were 19,233, with 10,142 coming from the Union and 9,091 from the Confederacy. This does not include the 30,000 members of the Confederate Army that surrendered in the siege. The next battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Bentonville from March 19th to 21st, 1865 in Bentonville, right around North Goldsboro in North Carolina. One of the last major skirmishes occurred not too far from Four Oaks Middle from our school. The Battle of Bentonville put Union General William T. Sherman against Confederate General Joseph E. Johnston. Sherman was on his route of destruction when he started towards Bentonville. On March 19, 1865, less than a month before Lee surrendered, Sherman and his men encountered Johnston's men entrenched in the earth at Bentonville. A give and take of land took place before Sherman regrouped his Union army in Goldsboro and went on the attack, pushing Johnston and his men back to Raleigh. On April 18th, after the surrender and final official battle of the Civil War, Johnston surrendered his Confederate army to Sherman at Bennett Place in Durham. Casualties for the battle numbered 4,133, with 1,527 from the Union and 2,606 from the Confederacy. The last and final battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse, April 9th, 1865 in Virginia. The last battle of the war. The Confederacy surrenders to Union General Grant. Union General Grant trapped Confederate General Robert E. Lee at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia. The Battle of Appomattox Courthouse was small and did not amount to many casualties, only 652, with 500 of that coming from the Confederacy. For 7 days, Lee was trying to lead his army to Lynchburg, Tennessee, to retrieve supplies to continue fighting. However, his army was cut off near Appomattox Courthouse. After a correspondence with General Grant, Lee surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia. Across the South, similar events happened, and the Confederacy surrendered, making the Battle of Appomattox Courthouse the last battle of the Civil War. All right, guys, those are battles of the Civil War. Next, we're going to be talking about advantages and disadvantages of the North and the South and daily life as citizens. I'll see you next time.